Welcome and thanks for joining me as I bring you stories of events around the globe. The news says Hungary blocks EU 54 billion financial aid for Ukraine. Venezuela and Guyana agree on a Essequibo dispute. Jumilai Hong Kong typhoon faces trial over unfair national security law. US caution Israel on civilian deaths in Gaza, and diseases spread in Gaza amid deteriorating health system. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has blocked 50 billion euros in European aid for Ukraine hours after the group agreed to formally open membership talks with Kyiv. Leaders meeting in Brussels said they would visit the issue next month after Orban refused to back the additional funding for Ukraine's government as it battles to remove Russian forces from its territory. The summit will be convened to reach a deal. Bulgarian Prime Minister Alexander Dizkro said that the financial support was vital. Orban has promised to block the membership talks with the funding for weeks, and the decision was a blow to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who failed this week to persuade Republican lawmakers in the United States to approve the additional $61 billion for Ukraine. Most EU leaders wanted this week's summit to send a clear sign of solidarity with Ukraine amid perceptions eagerly seized upon the repeated by Moscow disallowed support for Kyiv was warning. Critics have accused the Hungarian leader for holding Kyiv's survival hostage, the bid to force Brussels to release billions of euros in EU funds frozen aid amid concern about Budapest's commitment to the rule of law. In what some saw as a last-minute concession, the European Commission, the EU's executive, agreed on Wednesday to unlock 10 billion euros of the money. A further 21 billion euros remains out of Orban's grasp, but he denied that there was any link of Hungary's flexibility over Ukraine. The war in Ukraine has become bogged down on the front lines in the country's east, where Putin on Tuesday claimed his troops were making progress. The country currently has some 17,000 soldiers in Ukraine, he added, after launching its full-scale invasion in February 2022. Across Brussels, at NATO headquarters, the Security Alliance Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg warned that the West must continue supporting Ukraine in order to protect the rest of Europe. Venezuela and Guyana have agreed not to resort to force to settle a territorial dispute over the oil-rich Essequibo region after a tense meeting between the two countries' leaders in the Caribbean. Guyanese President Afan Ali and Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro agreed not to threaten to use force against one another in any circumstances, including those subsequential to any existing controversies between the two states, and to refrain whether by word or deed from escalating any conflict. In an 11-point declaration that was read out at a press conference after the meeting, the two men were unable to make progress in resolving the long-running dispute over the territory. However, with a joint commission composed of foreign ministers of both countries and other officials asked to address the issue and report within 3 months. The hours-long meeting between Ali and Maduro took place at the main international airport in eastern Caribbean island of St. Vincent, following mediation efforts by the regional groupings of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States and the Caribbean Community. The declaration noted that the impasse between the two men who clenched hands before their talks. Guyana urges the controversy should be resolved by the International Court of Justice in the Netherlands, while Venezuela says the court does not have jurisdiction. Guyana is not seeking war, but Guyana reserves the right to work with all of her partners to ensure that the defense of our country, he said. Maduro said ahead of the meeting that we will make the most of it so that our Latin American and the Caribbean remains a zone of peace. White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said that the United States was monitoring the situation and that diplomats are engaged in real time. Maduro has ordered state-owned companies to explore and exploit the oil, gas, and mines in Essequibo. Both sides have put their militaries on alert. The national security trial of Gen Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai is due to begin on Monday, more than a year after it was originally scheduled to start, and 3 years since it was first imprisoned. The 76-year-old, who is also a British citizen, stands accused of conspiring to collude with foreign forces and publish seditious materials. The most prominent figure to be charged under the security law that Beijing imposed on the territory in June 2020, Lai faces spending the rest of his life in jail. He has pleaded not guilty in all accounts. Jimmy Lai has been jailed since December 20 after an earlier bail ruling was overturned. He has been given prison times on other charges as he waited for the start of the national security trial. Earlier this week, Sebastian met recently appointed United Kingdom Foreign Minister David Cameron, a former Prime Minister who once campaigned closer ties with Beijing. Cameron promised the UK would continue to stand by Jimmy Lai and the people of HK, according to reports from the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office on the social media platform X. Before Lai was arrested at his home in August 2022 and taken by police on a raid of his newspaper offices that was live-streamed by his journalists, he was known as much for his entrepreneurial success as he was for his criticism of Beijing Communist Party, a reality among Hong Kong's wealthy. The United States has ramped up pressure on Israel to minimize civilian deaths in Gaza as Washington praises its ally to shift a lower-intensity war against Hamas and urged Israel to take greater care to protect civilians. Biden comments came as National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other members of the Israeli War Cabinet to discuss conditions for transitioning to more targeted military operations in Gaza. Sullivan and Netanyahu discussed objectives and facing certain conditions for shifts over time for high-intensity clearing operations to lower-intensity surgical operations against Hamas remnants, the White House said in a statement, while White House spokesman John Kirby said later that Sullivan discussed a possible transition to lower-intensity operations in the near future, but the administration has not put a timestamp on the shift. Kirby said Washington was to see the war end as soon as possible, but Hamas has the ultimate responsibility for ending the conflict. Sullivan's visit to Israel, which continues on Friday with meetings with top Israeli officials, including President Isaac Herzog, comes amid signs of growing divisions between Biden and Netanyahu over the death toll in Gaza and the life sprint for ending the war. On Tuesday, Biden delivered his strongest rebuke of Netanyahu's handling of the conflict, yet warning that Israel's discriminate bombing is costing its international support. Netanyahu said in a statement released after meeting with Sullivan that the war would continue until Hamas is eradicated, after Foreign Minister Eli Cohen pledged a day earlier to keep fighting, with or without international support. The besieged residents of the Gaza Strip who have so far survived Israel bombs and bullets are increasingly faced with the spread of diseases amid heavy winter rains and have flooded their makeshift shelters, an acute shortage of food and potable water. Doctors and aid workers have warned of epidemics, given a dire humanitarian situation with the enclave health system on its knees. From November 29 to December 10, cases of diarrhea in children under 5 jumped 66% to 59,895 and increased by 55% for the rest of the population, according to data from the World Health Organization. The UN Health Agency cautioned that the figures likely did not provide the full picture because of a lack of complete information with the health system and other services in Gaza near collapse. In its latest report on conditions in Gaza, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said the WHO has reported cases of meningitis, chickenpox, jaundice, and upper respiratory tract infections. Since the truce between Israel and Hamas collapsed on December 1st, hundreds of thousands of people have been forced to shelter in abandoned buildings, schools, and tents. Many are more sleeping unopened with little access to toilets or water to bath, aid workers said. 21 of Gaza's 36 hospitals are closed, 11 are partially functioning, and 4 are minimally functioning, according to WHO figures from December 10th. More stories on Gaza. Israeli military says their special forces have recovered the body of Ali Toledano, 28, who had been held by Hamas in Gaza since 7 October attack on southern Israel. Toledano, who was among a number of people to be seized from the Supernova musical festival close to the border with Gaza. No details have been provided on how or when he died, but the military said an identification procedure had been carried out by medics, military rabbis, and forensic experts. Toledano was on the Supernova festival with friend Mia Skem, 21, who was released on 1st December as part of the temporary truce deal. More than 130 hostages taken from Israel are due to remain in Gaza, though some have been declared dead in absentia by Israeli authorities. France's foreign minister has expressed her sorrow at the news of the death of Alicia Toledano, 28, a French citizen who was taken hostage by Hamas in the 7th October attack on Israel. Catherine Colonna said, "We share the pain of his family and loved ones after Toledano's body was recovered by Israeli militaries." The parties to a ceasefire in parts of Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo have agreed to a 2-week extension, according to a senior U.S. official. Such a deal, which was not previously reported and could not be independently verified with the parties, could come ahead of Democratic Republic of Congo's December 20th general elections. Congo or Rwanda's government could not immediately be reached after hours through the embassies in Washington. The White House has previously announced a 72-hour ceasefire starting on Monday, which they said applied to armed forces and non-state armed groups occupying certain key transit hubs in eastern DRC. That initial ceasefire expired and was broadly adhered to, U.S. officials said. The new ceasefire, which the U.S. state helped facilitate, was expected to apply to roughly the same areas and parties. Congo accuses Rwanda of backing a rebel group known as M23, which made a major comeback last year. Rwanda denies this. Conflict and violence in the eastern DRC is among many concerns weighing on the country ahead of the elections, where other issues include the economy, corruption, and mining in the huge Central African country of 95 million people. Worsening attacks by armed groups have killed thousands and displaced nearly 7 million people, many of whom live in crowded camps without running water, power, or reliable access to jobs or food. The United Nations has described it as one of the world's biggest humanitarian crises. Having an election when there is an active conflict is not in anyone's interest, the U.S. officials said, adding that the United States expects election to go ahead as planned next week. It will be Zuma Nigeria after this short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. And in Nigeria, ECOWAS suspends Niger for regional bodies. The Commission of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has officially suspended the Republic of Niger from all sub-regional bodies until constitutional order is restored in the country. This is contained in a statement by the regional organization following a decision taken at the Summit of Heads of State and Government held on Sunday in Abuja. Until the 64th Ordinary Session held on December 10, 2023, the Conference of Heads of State and Government considered the situation in Niger as a coup attempt and continued to consider Mohamed Bazoum, the President of the Republic of Niger, head of the state, the statement said. Consequently, beginning from December 10, 2023, Niger is suspended from all decision-making bodies of ECOWAS, until constitutional order is restored in the country, the statement said. ECOWAS asked the military junta of Niger, which came to power in a coup on July 26, to release the deposed President Mohamed Bazoum in exchange for the lifting of the sanctions imposed on the country. After the summit, blocs represented the proposal to lift the sanctions in exchange for the freedom of the deposed president, also asking the junta to shorten the duration of the transition period, currently set at 3 years. Chiani agreed to this last request without, however, specifying how much. The ECOWAS Court of Justice has dismissed a suit by a Nigerian, Richard Oba, asking the court to order the United States of America government to allow him to complete his jail sentence in Nigeria. Ogba is serving a 12-year jail term in the U.S. after he was convicted on February 14, 2017 of wire fraud. He has served 8 years of the sentence and will be due for release on May 8, 2026. However, in a preliminary objection, the Federal Republic of Nigeria contended that the application was incompetent and against the provision of Articles 9 and 10 of Article Supplementary Protocol. The FG noted that the Ministry of Justice, which was the second respondent, was neither a community institution nor a signatory of the ECOWAS Treaty. It, however, urged the court to dismiss the application, adding that the court lacked the jurisdiction to entertain the matter. Reading the lead judgment, Justice Sengu Koroma held that the court lacked jurisdiction to hear the matter. The court also stated that the applicant had not shown a valid reason for their complaint against the respondent. Lastly, in Nigeria, the Rivers State political crisis deepened further as 6 commissioners loyal to ex-Governor Nyesom Wike resigned from the cabinet of Governor Seminalayi Fubara. This was as the two factions of the split State House of Assembly held separate sittings on Thursday. The commissioners who tendered their resignation were the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Professor Zaccheaus Adangor, Commissioner for Works, Dr. Des George Kelly, Commissioner for Special Duties, Emeka Uke, Commissioner for Social Welfare and Rehabilitation, Mrs. Inimi Aguma, the Commissioner for Finance, Isaac Kamalu, and the Commissioner for Education, Professor Chinedu Mom. The Commissioner for Works, George Kelly, said he resigned because his conscience will not allow him to stay. The Social Welfare Commissioner, Ms. Agume, said, "I have ordered committing," while the AGF Adongo, on his part, said the resignation was based on personal principles. Meanwhile, the two factions of the State House of Assembly held parallel sittings at different locations on Thursday. The Speaker, Martin Omewole, who leads 27 pro-Wike lawmakers, sat at the Assembly quarters along Aba Road, Port Harcourt. On the other hand, the Edison Ehi-led faction, which is loyal to Fubara, reportedly held plenary at Government House, Port Harcourt. Thanks for watching. I am Alheri Moses. Have a blessed day.